Hello, everybody. Welcome to what we're going to call live-ish from Digiday. We are not live because who's got time to figure that out? We're just going to figure things out here as we go, record it, and send it up into the cloud. I'm Andrew Eklund, the founder of Ciceron, and I am joined here at the Digiday Programmatic Marketing Summit on paper here in beautiful New Orleans, Louisiana. And it's been great. And I am joined by two of my colleagues, Nicole Etheridge, who's SVP of our media group, oversees our media group, and Michael Holst. Did I say Michael? I like that. We're going to be real formal. Michael Holst, who is director of media strategy and planning. We are here together in New Orleans, and we just completed day 2 of this conference. And so what I wanted to do is get the three of us together, share a little bit about what we're seeing, and maybe more tellingly, what we haven't been seeing, which is part of it. And you can also see that we are not all in the same room, but boy, do we have matching hotel rooms. So hi, everybody. Are you exhausted?
A little bit. It's been a lot of interesting conversations, a lot of themes, as you said, hearing a lot of themes and some things that people aren't talking about.
Yeah, interesting. Go ahead.
I've just enjoyed meeting all the people, knowing that the problems and solutions that we face on a day-to-day basis aren't just ones that are just to us. They're kind of everywhere.
Misery loves company.
Yeah.
Might as well do it in New Orleans. All right, let's talk about some of these themes, right? So not surprisingly, the big theme of the whole conference seems to be picked up right out of the playbook from 2021, and it's the eventual deprecation of cookies. It seems to be sort of the number one topic, which I know all of us are kind of exhausted by the whole concept altogether. But, you know, if Google keeps to their promises and says that the end of 2024 is the time that cookies are going to go away, I think the general theme that I've heard, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on this because I know our interests lie elsewhere, but I feel like we have to be proper reporters. It seems like everybody is saying, no idea what we're going to do. Did you say that's true?
Yeah, people seem to be really stuck on it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it is just because clients aren't giving them direction and clients aren't making any movement, but it'll be on agencies to kind of help guide their clients through any of the issues.
Yeah.
I see it as a situation of that like Spider-Man meme where everyone's pointing at each other and the clients are saying like agency and platform, you need to make the decision. And then agencies are looking at client and platform to say like, well, who's going to jump first? And I think that's what's led us down the road of it always being like the date that the expiration date has been kicked further and further away in the past years. And there's always that like incentive. It kind of creates that incentive for brands, especially, to not take it seriously because it's kind of turned into like, well, are they really going away if it's always kind of renewed or that timeline gets extended? And I think from talking to other attendees here, it sounds like there's a bit of a split on some people who think that, you know, that is like a really big concern for them. But then there's others who are saying like, you know, we just need to do it. You know, it just needs to happen because you can't really necessarily like over prepare because you don't know exactly what it's going to look like afterwards. And it's going to force everybody to be flexible.
So my biggest concern in all of this is that in order for agencies and clients to work together in a future whereby we do not have the same sort of targeting technologies, and I'm not going to get into it again, but I think that we all agree that cookies was never meant to be doing the heavy lifting that it's done for 25, 30 years. And so it's just basically exposing a flawed system to begin with. Unfortunately, an entire ecosystem was built around a flawed system called cookies. And I think everybody is going to come to grips with it, you know, at the end of this year. And fortunately, I think we're all going to be better as a result. So let's just rip this damn Band-Aid off. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah.
It's been a cheaper and easier low-hanging fruit to take advantage of. And with it gone, it'll allow us to, you know, focus our efforts on things that are a little bit more productive, more reliable, for better data, essentially.
Yeah, right. And I think that the handshake between us and clients, us meaning the agency world and clients, is that there's some required technology that clients need to have under their own tech stack that I don't think they have budgeted for next year, which would be things like consumer data platform, CDP or a DMP or something like this. Maybe they have bits and pieces everywhere, but they haven't made the investment to solve this big problem. And I just don't know where on the list of priorities for IT professionals, where's the list to onboard this technology? Is it even in their 2024 plan to do it? Who asked for it? So I think it'll be really interesting. So the other thing that that we have heard about, we've heard a lot of different things about some new technologies. And, I think a couple of things that we heard today that I found really interesting, and I'm curious what you guys think, is we know the creator economy is for real. We know that for certain demographics, it's like some creators, some influencers have greater influence over our kids than we do as parents. So, what are you guys seeing in that space? And is there anything sort of interesting that we're finding that we would consider? I shouldn't say we consider, because we already do influencer campaigns, but in this creator economy, like, when does it become, for some brands, the dominant channel? Do we have any sort of, if you could look in your crystal ball, what kinds of brands should lean into this and say, yeah, there's Facebook, right? And there's Instagram, but then there's this creator economy. If you're selling cosmetics, beauty products, travel, all this, what are you guys seeing? Let's start with you, Nicole, so we don't have the talk around each other thing.
I think as brands that are new to market, it's a great way to get your brand out there with some credibility. I think a lot of brands need to not only look for people who have the broad spectrum of customers that they want to reach, but they need to be ones that have the credibility that the brand wants to align itself with. I also think that there's opportunity for, especially within CPG brands, to really get in front of new audiences in different ways, to diversify usage cases or diversify different markets in which they're not currently in. But I do think that influencer will only be a more powerful tool, especially as Gen Z becomes of age, because that is hearing the message from a trusted source is something that's very important to them, and personalization will only continue to be important to the users. And so I feel like it's just going to continue to evolve.
Yeah,
Mike,
I think
from your standpoint, I'm just curious about the research standpoint side of things. Like, how do I identify the proper creators, and even brand safety standards? Like, you know how it is, like, who you are as an influencer may not be the same as who you are in your day to day, and all of a sudden you end up on the front page news in handcuffs or something like this. The brand safety question.
Yeah, I guess
there. Oh, sorry. I was gonna say
sorry.
there is risk there with that. I think you have to do your due diligence to align yourself with an influencer or creator who shares the same kind of brand values that of like your brand voice that you're trying to amplify through them. Because as like Nicole pointed to, like the next generations rely heavily on those, like their key influencers in the circles that they exist within. And I think like post that with, once you've aligned with someone, not only is it like the reach on one channel, but a lot of these influencers exist across all the social channels, like everywhere. So it not only do you get like, if you're going to go with a YouTube influencer, they're going to also be posting on their TikToks, their Instagrams, because they engage with their audience, and that's what you're tapping into. It's not necessarily the influencer themselves, but it's their channel into their audience. And that's kind of like the important part, is finding your niche. Like, what is my industry? Who are the people that have the strong, the voices that help influence, like, that opinion within that industry or that circle that you're trying to establish a footing in.
And I think brands now, they're so fast to get in market, so they just kind of pick people based off of just, doing a simple search. I think a well-established brand nurture relationship with an influencer should take place. It's not something that happens overnight. It's not something that can happen necessarily in a month. Like, you want that user to not only use the product, but use it multiple times, use it in different ways, so that they can go out there and create content that is more authentic to your brand. And I feel like that's something that brands tend to do, is because they think of it, they want to activate it right away. So they just go pick people out, and then they just like look at their past posts. They forget to like date the influencer for a little bit and like have them get to know your products, send them multiple products, send them things that not only that the brand wants to accomplish, but then have that dialogue with them on like, who are they reaching? What type of stuff, how do they see the product integrated into their followers' lifestyles? And I think that like runway time is like, it's however long it can be, but it needs to be longer than it has been. It's not just like a plug and play. I'm going to use you and then I'm not going to continue to use you.
Well, I know this is all marketing. At the end of the day, it all ladders up to marketing. But what we're talking about right now, I think that there's some technology blind spots in the creator economy, being able to matchmake better between brands and potential influencers. I know that we talked even in our prep call just about, some of those technologies, but it feels like PR to me a little bit, / modern PR / marketing. We know that there's not a lot of programmatic inventory to sell against the creator economy necessarily. It's emerging. But a lot of what you're talking about, especially Nicole, is like, again, hand-to-hand negotiations, getting to know who these creators are on a brand level. Like, you would need to trust them, right? If they go rogue on you or something like this, or they're just doing a money grab and they're not even thinking about it from their own standpoint. I mean, talk about there are risks, right, of just picking the wrong influencer or suite of influencers.
And I would think too, it benefits the influencer, because the more one of their followers sees the product being used in their everyday life without it being promoted, maybe it's like in the background, or maybe it's just something that they reference in a different post. It's the user realizes that influencer is not just up there for a money grab, and that it strengthens that relationship with the influencer and their followers as well.
Yeah, you'd always want to single out that influencer that would just use your product without having to have a deal. Like that's the influencer like the first group of influencers you would want to work with are the ones that, would say like, I would advocate for this probably, even if I wasn't, working with this brand. That's because they are your client, they are your audience, and they have that channel to then amplify that across their reach.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things brands need to realize too, especially going into new markets, is it takes time. Like, you can't just have an influencer use your product, put some money behind it, and then think that you're going to get results. Like it needs to evolve over time. So it's something that I think in the past people have always just used it so quickly. And I think we need to take a step back and start thinking about how can we authentically use it? How can we nurture those influencers more long-term? And then how can we use their expertise in the market against who we're trying to reach as ways for our brands to fit in those people's lives?
Yeah, for sure. All right, couple more topics, and I want to get back to the technology side of it too. There was some really interesting talk. I'm specifically thinking about Taryn Oliphant from Essence was just talking about all of the interoperability problems among all the data platforms, that in order for us to do our jobs better, we need these platforms to be able to talk to each other rather than silo themselves, thinking that they're going to become like the de facto industry standard. The chances of that happening within the MarTech stack is becoming increasingly less likely. And so this idea of interoperability, so that you can onboard a new platform and be able to have the data outputs from that speak to another platform, seems to be a big problem. And I'm just curious, like, how are you guys running into that? Have you heard any solutions so far? Or is it just a general complaint box that we're just sort of dropping things into right now?
I think so far it seems like there isn't necessarily like a straightforward solution for it. Though I think, as I know, Andrew, you're quite the AI evangelist. That's a great opportunity for AI to contextually go in and look at data sets and to figure out like how can it rearrange, or if it's an organization problem within the data, to make that communicate better, or to create like a new larger data pool that houses everything and then puts it into one place that it can be used or accessed a lot easier. But yeah, that communication problem is difficult because things don't always translate. I think that's, because as soon as you start adding too much translation to something, you can accidentally remove context from the data.
And signals.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Nicole, I saw you nodding your head when Taryn was talking about that. So there must be something I know that you must struggle with every day.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't know any client that has it down perfectly. There's always issues, like internal organizational issues that happen, that I think a lot of the team functions are siloed so much that they're not talking with each other. Communication is key. I mean, it happens even in big and small organizations. We're just not talking with each other. We're not asking our partners in different verticals, what data do you have? How can we harmonize it all together? And I think it's kind of a growing issue that is hard for agencies to solve because it's an internal one on the client side.
Yeah. Let's get to one final topic here, because you just sort of like tipped the scales a little bit, Mike, when you talk about AI enthusiasm, but I'm actually quite surprised at how little we've heard about AI today. When at the same time we're talking about cookie deprecation, it seems to me like AI is just like sitting in the wings saying, you just give me a call, I'm ready, I'm sitting over here. And I think that I've noticed that, the three of us during this conversation, without saying these words specifically, have basically been saying, well, AI will fix that, AI will fix that. We did have a town hall meeting, which is a really nice thing that they do. They allow sort of the non-technology people, or excuse me, the non-technology vendors in the room, and its agencies and brands and so forth. And we did have a very lively discussion today, I think, about AI. And we've seen a little bit from some of the other technology partners who are here. But what I seem to think about from an AI standpoint is we're not thinking about it right. Like we're thinking about it, we're thinking too human, right? We keep thinking about these problems that we're going to have, and then we bring up AI and we say, oh, but that'll just like unlock all these other problems. And I'm like, AI will fix those problems too. And I don't want to be like that, like weirdo about it, but like at the same time, there's just so much like normalization of data and all of this. Like, what do you guys like? What did you hear in the town hall? What sort of ideas has it triggered for you that you think, well, that would be really great to at least start testing?
Nicole, I'll let you take this one first.
I've actually heard a lot of people use, I think one of the bigger issues organizationally is that people are people are more motivated by themselves versus their organization or their team. Yeah. Trying to figure out ways to utilize it in a centralized way, which is making it a little bit fragmented. And that's fine, right? Because we're like in the beginning stages. No one's an expert, or if you are, then you've obviously been doing it for a lot longer than other people. But I feel like people are like, I think there's a broad spectrum of where people are in their comfort level and just trying to get used to it. I know for myself, I took a personal approach. I started using it personally for like things that I would normally maybe do a Google search for, or things that might take me a while, or even like as a double check. Like once I did research, I double checked it against, I double checked AI against what I came up as my outputs. And then they're slowly merging that into how people are using it for their work perspective, because it's one thing if you use it in personal life and things go crazy, then whatever. But when you start using it in professional, you need to really understand how that feels, because there's a lot of liability around that. There's a lot of time or people's efforts or data that you need to ensure that you're not messing up. So I think it's just one of those things where everyone is kind of in discovery mode, and until teams start centralizing goals or ways to utilize AI in their kind of operations or tasks, then it's going to be a little bit fragmented.
Yeah, I think kind of adding on to what you said, like the the being used for like that personal benefit is like a really good way to introduce it in the industry. I think it's hard to say that like someone's going to go from not having any exposure to like an AI tool to saying, well, I'm going to suddenly just dump all this data in there and just trust that it's going to do the right thing. I think there needs to be that, like, similar to what we were mentioning with like the creator economy, of like, you need to court your AI a little bit so you can understand it and see where it can benefit you. Where does it lack? Like, what can't it do currently? And how can I use it as an assistant, essentially? I think there were people in the last town hall who were, sharing the sentiment that, it's not going to replace jobs. It's just going to it's going to elevate everyone's job. It's going to take away those mundane tasks, which are kind of the personal use cases. But it's going to also, like, there's this scalability with it that it can then ingest a lot of data and then come up with a lot of like those like preliminary directional decision making that you can then pressure test.
Right.
But I think it's that initial jump into it. That adoption is going to take a little bit of time, but we're already adopting it. Siri,
With individuals.
it's already in our lives in some capacity. Like search uses it for autofill, like all those machine learning things. Siri uses it. I think there's just a little bit of that need to then kind of transition through slowly the grading. I think it's just its strength is growing faster than people are adopting it. And that's where that issue is. We need to kind of close that gap by getting more people using it in small increments, because then it just becomes an association of like, eventually we'll probably be like, remember when everyone was going crazy over AI? Because it's just going to be so common everywhere.
Yeah.
That it's just, no one's going to really care about it in that sense. There's just going to be another tool in our set. It's going to give everyone an assistant that they can use to do the mundane tasks. Wouldn't that be great if like even the entry level position at an agency, you could just turn you to your assistant, which will be AI, and ask it to do things for you that then you can then work on its output to provide to whoever you report to.
I would say that 9 out of 10 people are, that's, in the town hall and otherwise, that's how they're using it. They're using it individually. And I think that is really fascinating to me. It's a bottom up technological revolution, in the sense that people aren't waiting to ask their IT departments, like, what are you going to do about it? They are just using it every day. And eventually they're going to share among themselves. Oh yeah. I don't do media planning that way anymore. I do it this way. I don't do audience design the way we used to do it. I do it now this way. And pretty soon it's just going to reveal itself. And then IT is going to be like, well, I guess we don't need to have that expensive tool that, was on the list, because apparently you've all sort of like scrummed your way through and developed a whole new process of doing things. And so, but I'm not totally convinced that like IT people necessarily even know what's happening at the everyday working level sorts of things. And they may come in, I can just see it happening now. They may just come in later and say, we have a new platform that does this, and they drop it down on everybody's desktop. And the AI thing that everyone sort of just hacked together and just had fun with is way better than that thing. What are you going to do? Are you going to say, oh, we'll abandon a better way that we figured out and go to your slow, clunky, or not even slow and clunky, but like expensive walled garden technology?
Yeah, I think I liked in the town hall that the consensus was it's not taking over everyone's job. There's still always going to be a human approach that's needed for everything, but it gets you like 70% there. It takes out all the, like Mike said, it takes out those mundane parts so that you can actually spend more time like analyzing things and being more strategic and thinking about the task at mind, because you're not bogged down with all those in the weed tasks.
Right. That's great. Hey, we did it. That was like less than a half hour, but more than 15 minutes, like we said. Thank you, everybody. And we're going to have some, I don't know, what are we going to have? Some crawfish, some crawdad tonight or something like that? A little jazz music? I don't know. Or maybe just go to bed early.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you to both of you, and we'll see you later. And thanks everybody for tuning in.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Is that good?